Good day, everyone, and welcome to the September 2023 edition of our C5 and Hydrocarbon Resin podcast. This is Steve Williams, VP for C5 and Hydrocarbon Resins here at Argus. With the recent release of the 2023 Hydrocarbon Resin Analytics, I thought it timely to provide an update on hydrocarbon resin capacity and operating rates, as well as highlight new capacity projects we see starting up over the next several years. 2022 was another year of strong capacity growth in the global hydrocarbon tackifier business. Total combined capacity for C5, C9, and hydrogenated hydrocarbon tackifiers grew 3,211 kilotons per year in 2022 from 2,918 kilotons per year in 2021, which represented a growth rate of over 10% and was well in excess of HCR demand growth for 2022, which itself was only estimated at 1.9%. This continues a pattern we've seen since 2018, wherein capacity growth is far outpacing demand growth for hydrocarbon-based tackifiers. Since 2018, total hydrocarbon tackifier capacity has grown by 34%, while during the same period, overall demand has grown by just 18%. So as a result, we continue to see global operating rates continue to drop from an average of 75% in 2018 to the recent low of 66% in 2022. With some of the new capacity additions we will discuss later, we expect these overall rates to drop further into the lower 60s before slowly starting to recover later in the decade. And while water white tackifier capacity has undoubtedly been the focus of much of the increase, C5 and C9 tackifier capacity has also grown during the same period. 78% of total HCR capacity now resides within Asia Pacific and 58% of global capacity within China. Let's look a little closer at each family of the HCRs, beginning with C5s. C5 tackifier capacity grew more slowly during the 2018 to 2022 period at close to global GDP growth rates. But a full year of operation for 2021 startups, coupled with new capacity that came online during 2022, increased capacity by 11.8%, a sizable increase. C5 tackifier capacity reached 1,067 kilotons per year in 2022. As is the case for all types of hydrocarbon tackifiers, nearly all of this capacity growth was based in China, where feedstocks remain readily available, along with sizable growth in naphtha-based ethylene production in the country. More recent Chinese capacity additions, including a doubling of capacity at Ningbo Jinhai, a new co-poly train at Honghe in Ningbo, and two new HCR lines for C5s at Derong on Zhoushan Island. We continue to see new HCR capacity in China for water white and C5 HCRs dominated by the larger, more integrated players. With capacity growth far exceeding C5 HCR demand growth of 2.3% during 2022, global average C5 HCR operating rates dropped noticeably during 2022 from 70 to 71%, from 77% in 2021. We don't expect global average operating rates for C5 HCRs to exceed 75% until later in the decade at the earliest. U.S. operating rates are expected to remain the highest globally. 73% of C5 tackifier capacity now resides within Asia Pacific and 59% within China itself. C5 HCRs represent 33% of global HCR capacity. Let's turn to C9 HCRs next. C9 HCR capacity grew the slowest of the tackifier families and actually shrank during the 2018 to 2021 period by 4.2%. But a full year of operation for late 2021 startups, coupled with new capacity that came online during 2022, increased capacity by 8.4% during 2022, which is a sizable increase for C9 HCRs. C9 HCR capacity reached 1,028 kilotons in 2022. All of this capacity growth was based in China, with C9 feedstocks more readily available from the naphtha-based crackers. More recent Chinese capacity additions included increased capacity at Honghe and Ningbo in late 2021 and a new thermal C9 HCR line in Inner Mongolia. Unlike C5 and water white tackifiers, there are a large number of smaller players for C9 tackifier production in China, but like the other tackifiers, we do expect this to consolidate to fewer larger players as time progresses. with C9 HCR capacity growth far exceeding demand growth, which was -1% during 2022. Global average C9 HCR operating rates dropped during 2022 from 61% to 61% from 67% the previous year. We don't expect global average operating rates for C9 tackifiers to exceed even 65% until later in the decade at the earliest. European operating rates are expected to remain the highest globally, although these will drop significantly for 2023 and probably 2024 due to feedstock impacts on Estonian production from the Russia-Ukraine conflict and subsequent sanctions on the feedstock. 83% of C9 tackifier capacity now resides within Asia Pacific and 71% within China itself. C9 HCR represents 32% of global HCR capacity. Last but certainly not least are the water white or HHCR family of tackifiers. Water white capacity grew by far the fastest of the tackifier families during the 2018 to 2021 period, with 82% growth in capacity, and coupled with a full year of operation for late 2021 startups and new capacity that came online during 2022, meant capacity increased by a further 9.8% during 2022. Water white capacity reached 1,116 kilotons per year in 2022. All of this capacity growth was based in China, with C9 or DCPD feedstocks more readily available from the naphtha-based crackers. More recent Chinese capacity additions include sizable increased capacity at Honghe in Ningbo in late 2021, a full year of operation at an expanded Ningbo Jinhai, and the new Wuhan production from Luwa. We already see the HHCRs as the most consolidated of the tackifier markets, with even fewer larger players likely to remain as time progresses. With water white capacity growth far exceeding demand growth of 4% during 2022, global average water white tackifier operating rates dropped during the time frame to 66% from 71% the previous year. Water white tackifier operating rates were 91% as recently as 2018, highlighting the explosive capacity growth we've seen in this market. Operating rates will drop further over the next several years, and we don't expect global average operating rates for water white tackifiers to exceed 65% until the end of the decade at the earliest. U.S. operating rates are expected to remain the highest globally, helped in part by the tariffs that remain in place for imports of Chinese tackifiers. Water white capacity now represents 35% of global HCR capacity, and that's up from just 23% as recently as 2018. Contributing to the ongoing saga of more capacity and lower operating rates are a number of new projects that have or will come to fruition over the next several years. This begins with a number of water white startups, all of them in China, occurring very late 2022 and during 2023. Zongi, which is now more commonly known as the EcoGreen plant, started up a 20 KT expansion in late 2022. Tianli is expected to start up a new 30 KT DCPD-based unit shortly at Dushanji City. Luwa is expected to start up a water white production at a new 30 KT unit at Zhangjiao very late this year. Honghe, the world's largest HCR producer, should bring an additional 30 KT of DCPD-based production online at Ningbo late this year, with another 60 KT of capacity to follow very late 2024. 2025 and 2026 should see substantial additional water white capacity from Honghe at the new Tianjin site, with a total of 160 KT of new water white capacity. With all these additions, it's easy to see why operating rates have dropped dramatically for water white operations and are poised to drop even further before recovering. There'll be several new C5 tackifier capacity additions as well. Luwa will start up a new 36 KT C5 unit at Zhangjiao over the next month or two, which takes feed from the adjacent isoprene unit on site. As part of their Tianjin project, Honghe is expected to start up 40 KT of C5 tackifier production, during 2025-2026. At present, we don't see any new C9 tackifier projects, which current producers may be thankful for given the severe overcapacity in the market. Combined with what has been a weaker market for most tackifiers during later 2022 and 2023 year to date, we are obviously going through a very challenging period for tackifier producers, but we don't see overall operating rates recovering for some time. Within China, operating rates often follow more of a dumbbell appearance, with larger, more integrated producers running at higher than average rates, and smaller producers who often have to buy their feedstocks in the spot market running at lower rates. We eventually expect more capacity rationalization to occur, particularly in the Chinese C9 market, where many of the producing assets are smaller and older. Until that time, competition for sales will remain intense and margins are likely to remain more depressed. Many of the legacy water white producers in particular can remember a time not that long ago when sales margins for water white tackifiers were much, much stronger. Operating rates and capacities for tackifier producers around the globe are covered in more detail in the recently released 2023 HCR Analytics. Hope you've enjoyed this podcast and feel free to reach out to me with any questions you may have. Goodbye until next time.